Hey guys, Nick Kringus here, and just a really quick story. I had my first call with a new GGOB or Great Game of Business client, and I just like to cover what we went over on that call without giving any specifics, of course. But the person that I met with is an owner of an in-home healthcare agency. So they provide nursing services in the person's house. And so these people are usually elderly people towards the end of their life or towards the later part of their life. They're having health issues and they need an in-home nurse or healthcare practitioner. So this person wants to implement the great game of business in her company, and the two things that we went over basically were the first two steps in implementing the great game of business in any company, which is share the why or share your why and start with the right leadership. So the first part of that, and I don't know if this is the why that she's going to be sharing with the team moving forward, but part of the reason for implementing the great game is she wants to be able to walk away from the day-to-day operations of the company and hand over the reins of the business to a CEO and a COO and executive leadership team. So I thought that that actually reminded me of the great game of business coach Kevin Walter, and he had a catering company with his two brothers. They owned it together. And after playing the great game of business in the catering company for about 8 or 10 years, the employees actually kind of kicked them out and said, you're not wanted or needed here anymore. And as nicely as possible, we're basically like, we got this. Just put your offices across the street, far away, at least not in the day-to-day operations. Like literally, get yourselves away from the day-to-day operations because we got this. And that's what creating a team of employees that act and think like owners can do. And that's exactly what the great game of business promises, is to create a group of people that think and act like owners that run the company as an owner would. So it's perfect for this person. This person wants to hand over the reins to a CEO and not be as involved in the day-to-day operations. So, and I'll just say this: without the great game of business, or what if you, because I've been guilty of this myself in the past. Things were going really well, so I stepped away from the day-to-day operations, and I wasn't working as hard in the day-to-day operations. I was working more on building the company, but not in the day-to-day operations. And it was too soon, and it was well before we had the great game of business implemented and installed in our agency. So I soon found out that I wasn't, it was too soon. I wasn't able to do that. I had to go back in. Issues started coming up. Clients weren't getting the results that they wanted. There was a lot of drama happening within the agency without my partner and I there on a day-to-day basis. So, but now looking at the great game of business, we're not quite there yet. But in a year or two after these employees have been playing the great game, I can see how I could step away from the day-to-day operations because it's a team of people that think and act like owners, and they run the company, and they make decisions with the company's best interest in mind, as if they were owners. So the first part of our call was to share the why, and that was part of the person's why. Was her exit strategy was to walk away from the day-to-day operations and to hand over the reins to a CEO and leadership team. The second part of our call was to start with the right leadership, and we talked about creating a good design team. And I think two things about creating a good design team. Number one is that they have the right characteristics and qualities and core values, and they share the common characteristics of great game leaders. But second, I like to have someone from each level of the organization within the design team. And this kind of goes back to the other thing that she shared with me, which was about her why, which was she thought that the client, and most importantly, the client would get a nurse and would get better service, and nurses would if they're thinking, acting like owners in the great game, would give better service to the client. So that's why we wanted to get someone from every level of the organization in the design team, and it also dovetailed perfectly with the person's part of the person's why, to give better service to the end user, to her clients who need home health care services in their home. So that was basically it. We talked about those two things kind of extensively. Why do you want to do the great game? Why do you want to implement the great game in your company? And how to design the right leadership team, the right design team that is going to build the game. So over the next couple of weeks, we're going to meet once a week and talk about the different design team members. I'm going to interview the design team members to make sure that they're a right fit and that they should be on the design team. And then we're going to go into the initial on-site. But for today, it was two things. It was just share the why and start with the right leadership. And that's how you get started with the Great Game of Business Certified Coach. Those are the first two steps. All right, guys, remember, people support what they help create. If you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to reach out. As always, thanks for watching.